All
Hey
right.
everybody. Sorry for being a couple minutes late. We were trying to fix um Sherry's stand is a different one and it didn't really want to cooperate with where her stitching goes.
No,
So
it didn't.
you take it away, Sherry. I'm here as the
Oh,
wingman.
well, thank you. I am so excited that we are finally at June 1st and our kickoff. We have had over 70 people respond, 70 stitchers respond that they were going to try and jump on with this. So that is very exciting. Um, Kathy Ray, like she said, she is my wingman today. So she'll be able to catch the questions that people ask. Um,
Yeah,
let's do a
I'll
little.
I'll try to reply both electronically as well as verbally.
Awesome. So you see myself, you see Kathy, and then my stitching. When I turn my light on, my magnifying glass in order to see it, it'll obscure my stitching a little bit, but not too bad. Um, this is our kickoff for Hannah Campbell. She is amazing. Now, it has been since October when Nicola and I talked about some different options for this particular stitch along. And she sent me 6 different samplers. And when I came across Hannah, I went, oh, she's amazing. And she is. She's just loaded. She is really quite a stunning sampler. And I know that all of you that have seen it have just been chomping at the bit and waiting. And we've had a couple of stitchers that got it and have already stitched it, which just blows my mind because there is a lot to this sampler. Now I have taken and broken this sampler down. If you go to on the page in under featured, you will see that there is a picture of the sampler and it is broken down into 15 months. Because there's so much over one, there's so much to this sampler, we decided that we would stretch this out to be a 15-month sampler instead of a typical 12-month sampler. We have moved my arm here. Let's see if I can do this without knocking stuff over. There we go. Um, we've got over one in here. We have over one on the birds. We have eyelet. Now I know that Jean Lee at the attic is going to stitch those eyelets as Smyrnas. She is not an eyelet fan, and so she mentioned to me the other day that she was going to stitch those as Smyrnas. So you can make adjustments to fit what you like. One thing that we forget sometimes is there really are no cross stitching police. We are out there to enjoy what we're doing and to love the stitching that we do. Now, different shops, let me tell you the shops that have been involved in this. We have we have the attic in Mesa, Arizona. We have Needle in a Haystack. At what city is Needle in a Haystack located in, Kathy?
I'm in Alameda across the bay from San Francisco.
Right. Thank you. Alameda in California. We have Acorns and Threads up in Portland, Oregon. We have Traditional Stitches up in Canada and
She's in Toronto.
Toronto. Thank you. And then in
I'm sorry.
Tasmania.
I said Toronto, but she's actually in Calgary.
Oh, okay. I'm good with that. I'm good with Calgary. Um, and then, and that is, so we have Kathy, we have Janine at Acorns and Threads. We have Janice at Traditional Stitches. And we have Carolyn. Yeah, did I pronounce that right?
Carrie, yeah, I think it's Carrie
Carrie Lynn?
Lynn. Yeah,
Carrie Lynn. Okay. Carrie Lynn, thank you.
down under.
down under in Australia, in Tasmania, at a stitch in time. So there are, that was five, right? One, two, three, four, five. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Five shops
And we're
that are helping to
and
sponsor
we're
this.
hoping that when you and I and Nicola, so Nicola's coming to Jean's Bristol event, and
Yes.
our plan is on hopefully maybe Sunday afternoon, which
Yep.
is the 10th, sorry, 11th, that Nicola and you and I and Jean and Janine, who will also be there,
Yes.
we'll be able to do a live from there, and we're going to try and hook Carrie Lynn and Janison as well virtually, and do a corral of the five of all of us. So
Yes.
that ought to be fun.
So we'll let you know what time on Sunday afternoon, but that is on Sunday afternoon on the 11th of June. But that'll be really fun because, again, like she said, there will be four of us that are involved in this stitch along all together for the Addicts Bristol 3 uh, event. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. So what you decided to stitch on, um, different shops had different fabrics that were available. A lot of them, however, were the 45 count tie iced tea and the 38 count chai, right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, it's Thai iced tea, and yeah, now I have to remember what the 45 count is.
I know. So, anyway, I am stitching on. However, some people, I'll back up a second, some people decided that they wanted to pull from their stash. And ultimately, that's what I opted to do. I stitch on 56 count. And I have, as you can see, if you can see, you may not be able to see it yet. Um, I'll bring it closer. I have taken one little stitch, and that was just to get my pin stitch started. So I didn't have to fuss with that while we were on air. And
So the
I am
45 count is the Thai iced tea, the 38 count is Irish coffee.
Irish coffee. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I knew I was messing that up. And I even was awake at 4:30 this morning trying to mull through everything I had to have ready in time for today. And I could not remember that. That's what happens when you get too excited for something, then you can't sleep once your eyes open. Um, I'm stitching on 56 count Seraphim Bee's Knees. And this is from my stash. I know that some shops sent out Weeks Mocha, which was beautiful also with the colors. There were so many beautiful options for this. The model, I believe, was stitched on sand dune,
Yeah, it was stitched
vintage sand
on
dune
vintage sand dune. Mm-hmm.
from Lakeside. And not because it was the only option, but because this was stitched during COVID and there weren't a lot of options that were available at the time. So don't feel bad if you're not stitching it on the exact same fabric that the model was stitched on. The options were numerous that we could stitch on, and they're just lovely. So we're just really, really excited about this sampler. How many people do we have on with us so far? Can you tell?
Yeah, it's 41.
Awesome. That is very exciting. That is very exciting. Now, because I stitch on 56 count, we had to do a conversion to Swasserfine. And most of the colors converted directly from the 103 over to the Swasserfine without having to change the color at all, which was really exciting for me. That doesn't happen very often, but I think there were just three colors that didn't have an exact match in Swasserfine that we had to convert. So it's one of the few times where mine will actually turn out pretty much like everybody else's. I tend to Mine tend to be just a little bit different. All right. So if you look in your book, and I'm sure you've had a chance if you have your book, if you don't yet, that's okay. Your supplies are coming. Don't panic. Stitch on something else when I start dabbing the needle into my fabric. But Nicola is amazing. If you have not stitched a Hands Across the Sea pattern before, she always gives as much background as she can to the person and the area that the sampler comes from, which is just phenomenal, the amount of research that goes into it. And then there's always a stitch guide. And there is rice stitch in this sampler. There is this traditional cross stitch, and there's the Algerian eyelet, and then there's the over one. Now, Kathy, is it possible for us to get the tint stitch guide posted on
Yeah.
our Hannah Campbell that you have?
Yeah, I'll move it over from the
From Sarah
Sarah
Rinder?
Bender group. Yeah.
Awesome. Kathy has a really great um, picture of how to cross stitch a tint stitch if when you're doing the over one, you want to do a tint stitch instead of full cross. I tend to do that on my 56 count. When I do over one, I tend to do it in a tint stitch. And I know for those of you that are, say, stitching on a 38 count and you're stitching with the Soie d'Alger, you can go to the shop that you ordered from and get from them a 103 or a Soie Surfine to help stitch those over ones so you can stitch them in full cross if you want to do that. Or you can stick with the floss weight that you have and do a tint stitch. So
And there are seven colors that I found in the design that are done over one.
okay.
And on our order page, I listed them. I'll add a list to the Facebook group so that if you want to do them and you haven't already done that, you can.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate that. Um, yeah, Kathy has been, this particular Facebook group has converted from Jane Fittis to to Eliza Martha Linfoot and now Hannah Campbell. And Kathy has been um, one of my admin with me through this whole thing because I have been the stitch along leader for each one of these three patterns. And I just enjoy it. It's fun. It's fun. So here's my little stitching setup. The chair you see me sitting in is new. I'm so excited. I used to sit on my bed because we have two dogs and four cats. Um, live with my husband, my oldest daughter, and our 5-year-old grandson. And it's his birthday today, so happy birthday to my awesome little Caden. And so, in order to have any peace and quiet in my little house, I have always just cross stitched sitting up in my bed. And our anniversary was a few days ago, and we bought me a chair.
How exciting.
I know. I feel like a grown up.
I always think that the most exciting birthday presents are the things you actually use.
Absolutely.
I
So
mean,
I now have
granted,
a
I won't pass up
grown-up
somebody sending
chair.
me pretty flowers, but a new chair is a great thing.
I know. So I have a chair and I've got a little side table and I have great light. And I actually have an extra liner hanging in my window so I don't have too much backlighting behind me in my window. Otherwise, I'd have too much light and you wouldn't be able to see my face. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And so here's the rest of my treasures. Now, my beautiful little Pringles can here, my beautiful little Pringles can is my Ork container. I'm going to cover it in fabric at some point. So, because it's the perfect Ork container because it has a lid
I
and it
like that.
carries in my bag really well. So I'm going to cover it and make it pretty, but I didn't have time before today. And then at the attic, you can get these amazing little trays. They are made by Kathy Ray, who you can also get them from Needle in a Haystack. And my guess is that you could order them from any of the shops, and they would order them from Kathy Ray and get
Yeah,
them to
we can
you.
do, we haven't done custom ones for Hannah, but we certainly could do that.
Yeah. So I just pulled out my red one. I have a beautiful pink one that Kathy sent me, and a really beautiful spring green that is just lovely, that are for the other stitch along that
Yeah,
I'm doing. Because one is
because
not enough in my world.
one is not enough. Yeah.
One is not enough. Um, but I keep my little tray out, and then I take my scissors out of my beautiful sewing box, and I don't want my sewing box to get dirty and ruined. So I take my scissors out of my sewing box, put them in my tray, and I've already pulled most of the thread that I would need for working on today for the area that we're working on. And then I have my little lovely Pringles Ork container.
I like that.
It works. It works
I'll
great.
be
My
right
husband
back.
threw it away one day. I made him go dumpster diving for it.
I can see you saying, honey, where did you put my?
I did. I did. I said, "Where'd you put my Pringles can?" He goes, "It was garbage." I said, "No, no, that was a treasure, believe it or not." All right, so that's how I do my setup. And then
So
I
this is
have,
so this is one of the pink ones.
yes, yes. See, that one says keep calm and stitch on. Mine says queen of everything, which I just tickles me to no end. I just loved it when it showed up. Um, some of you were able, depending on when you ordered your um, kit, were able to get the little frippery from Minnie McBean that was made to go with this. There are no more available. So if you got one, that is awesome. If you didn't, I'm sorry.
We actually still have some.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I ordered enough that I still have a few left from the for people who are buying kits from us.
Well, awesome. I may have to get with you. I didn't get one in my with my
Oh,
kit.
we can have that conversation. I'll set one aside for you.
There are perks to being the stitch along leader.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. In fact, let me let's see. I think I still have it here. Yeah, you go ahead and talk. I'm just going to see if
Excuse
I
me
could
while I
find
get
it.
a drink. I'm sorry. I take medication that keeps my mouth really dry. So forgive me if I have to take drinks while we're chatting here. Um, so anyway, this is my setup. This is how I like to stitch. Um, Stitching brings me untold joy, and I know that's the way it is with so many of the rest of you, that it just is it's your zen spot. It's where you can relax, it's where you can decompress. And so that's really one of the reasons that I'm so happy to do these stitch alongs. I love having um, different patterns to work on each month. I used to be a monogamous stitcher, and then I started working Saturdays at the attic, and Dean was always bringing in new patterns. And so I'm no longer a monogamous stitcher. I call myself a hussy. I am a hussy stitcher, um, because I
As
am no
opposed to
longer faithful.
as opposed to a fussy stitcher.
As opposed to a fuzzy stitcher. Yes, because I am no longer a faithful stitcher. I will stitch whatever makes me feel good at that on that day and in that moment. And if I get tired of it, I put it away. So I am going to pull this out, and we're going to get to doing some stitching here. Some of you like to make copies of your patterns. That's awesome. I don't. I tend to beat the living daylight out of my patterns. Um, but I only do them once. I only stitch a pattern one time. So I don't feel bad that I am hard on my patterns and that I have to, some patterns I've had to throw away when I was done. And like I said, I have 4 cats, and I came in one day when I was stitching Jane Fittis. So that was 2 stitch-alongs ago, 2 years ago, when we did Jane Fittis. And I had left my pattern on my bed and all of my stuff. And I came in, and there was my cat gnawing away on the corner of my book. And she had shredded the corner. And fortunately, it didn't get any of the necessary pattern that I was on at that moment. But that's not the only pattern I've had a cat ruin. Um, but anyway, I just go with it.
Yeah.
I just go with it. Okay, so I'm turning on my light, so hopefully that won't be too glaring. I'll try to get this where you can see it and I can see it through my magnifying glass. And the reason that I laid out the pattern the way that I did with the 15 months in a grid, as opposed to picking, say, some funky little section and dividing it up that way. I did it at the request of one of our stitchers, and I cannot remember her name, and I'm so sorry. I am terrible with names. But she said, Sherry, I start in the bottom left corner where I am a top left corner starter. And I know Jean Lee starts in the top right corner. And I've met people that start in the bottom right corner. And then there's those that start in the middle. And by laying it out in a grid, you're still able to easily follow along each month without feeling like you're not keeping up with the rest of the group because you're picking some funky spot. Because the way that that grid is laid out is it is basically, each month is basically 78 stitches wide that we're stitching by about 58 stitches long. And that way you can start wherever it works best for you. You stitch a grid roughly that size, and we'll all in at the same time, even if we're not all in the exact same spot on the pattern. And so I appreciated that request by that stitcher, and it it worked out. Yeah, I think it'll work out really well. All right, let me get that paper out of my way. All right, so I have done my pin stitch. If you don't start with a pin stitch, I'm not going to show you today, only because I don't have a low enough count fabric for you to really be able to see it. That is the drawback to me stitching on 56 count for the stitch-alongs, is it is a little more difficult to see my stitches when I'm stitching. But
Well, we
when
can
it
do that.
comes,
We can do that as a little video on a different account and post it to the group
yes,
for people. Yeah.
yep, we will do that.
We have the
Um,
technology.
yeah. Well, I said Kathy is our technology guru. It is not me. It is not me. We are using StreamYard because Kathy knows how to use it, not because I do. But it works. It's working really well, and I so appreciate it. She popped on this morning and said, "Would you like me to be your wingman?" And I said, "Yes, yes, be my wingman." I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to set it up so that people could see the stitching and not just hear a disembodied voice, which is what I've always done in the past. Is just set the camera on my stitching and you've listened to my disembodied
Well,
voice.
and then it did make me decide what to do for a background. So I went and took a picture of a piece of vintage sand dune, and that's what the background is behind the videos. Is
Yes.
actually, it's not, I didn't color correct it, but
Yeah, it's a
it's
little
linen.
browner. Vintage
It's
sand
linen. It's linen.
actually
That's
much
the important
closer
part.
to what I'm working on here, only a little bit lighter. I think vintage sand dune is just a hair lighter than the bee's knees that I'm
It
working
is.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll notice if you were to have pulled a piece of bee's knees in a lower count, it's probably considerably darker than what I'm stitching on, because the colors tend to come out much lighter on 56 count. And we've talked about why
They
that
do.
is. We can talk about
Yeah.
that again at another time. But so I start with a pin stitch. I do not end with pin stitches. I find them um, too unwieldy to end with. I always bury the thread in the back when I end with a color. And I am not a two-handed stitcher. I am a stab and poke stitcher. And I stitch with my little tiny hoop. I use, this is my little 3.5 inch hoop. I stitch everything with this little tiny hoop. And the reason that I do, regardless whether it's 56 count or 38 count, is because it moves. I can move it so quickly, and it doesn't leave many rings. And I know some people worry about that ruining their fabric. I've never had that be an issue when it came time for things to be framed, that my hoop left markings that wouldn't ever come out. But I don't
It's
store it
less,
in my
it's not,
hoop either.
it's also not really a problem with linen. The problem is cotton fabrics like Ada,
The Ada, yes,
and even some of the cotton blends. Cotton likes to hold a
in the
crease and never
Lugana,
let go. Linen,
right?
if you just spritz it with water or hang it up in a shower, usually will let go of any creases.
Yeah, thank you, because that is absolutely true. Um, and then, if you'll notice, I put my hoop, I lay my fabric right side up on the outer ring of my hoop, and then I come down and clamp down into the top of it. The reason I do that is, one, it gives me a flat surface for burying my thread in the back, and two, it helps keep my hand off of my face fabric. My golds, my tans, my things don't typically do I have issues with soiling, but when I'm stitching with an off white or a cream, I have to be very careful. And so I do everything I can to keep my hand off of the face of the fabric so that I don't end up with those oily, soiled spots that happen no matter how many times you wash your hands sometimes. So, what do you do to keep spots off of your fabric, Kathy?
Well, I stitch in hand more often. I
Oh, you
don't,
do?
and
Okay.
yeah, I do, and I roll my fabric. So I don't even stitch it in a scroll frame. I just kind of take it in. Should have brought a piece with me today, but I'll show you kind of with a sample of a different. So like for a piece like say this, I just roll it up, and so I'll stitch like this with it rolled up. And because
Okay.
it doesn't stay rolled up for long periods of time, it doesn't seem to get really dirty. My hands are really dry, so I
Mine
don't
are not. Mine are not.
mine don't generate a lot of oil, so I don't have as much of an issue as some other people do. But
Right.
you do
Oh, that's good.
whatever works. That's the important
Well,
part.
and I keep baby wipes on hand all the
Oh, that
time
would work.
too. Yeah, I
Yeah.
keep baby wipes on hand so that if the cats come in and wanted loves while I'm stitching and I pet the cat, or I have pet the dog and my dog likes to roll around in the dirt in the backyard. She's a black dog and comes in brown sometimes. Um, then I keep baby wipes on hand so that I can quickly wipe off my hands and move on with what I'm doing. So I am, when I stitch, I, again, no stitching police. Keep that in mind. There are no stitching police. So I stitch from bottom left of my stitch to the top right, from bottom right to top left. That's how I create my stitches. If you do yours different, no problem. They could be done different. The idea is to be consistent so that your stitches always go the same way, which I suspect with this pattern, most of you already know that. because this is really not truly a beginner level pattern, only because it's just a little intense. Um,
Yeah, I just
so,
usually tell people that as long as the top stitches face the same direction, that's really
right,
the important part. It doesn't really matter what the bottom travel path looked like.
right, because it's going to be hidden.
Yeah.
It's going to be hidden. The other thing that I do that, had I been thinking clearly, I would have brought home my little graph that I have at work. Um, is I always start my stitches southwest of a vertical line. So you have horizontal threads, you have vertical threads. I always start so that I'm to the left of my vertical line and south of that horizontal line. And the reason I do that, and I didn't used to always do that, and I was always making mistakes on my borders in particular. My borders would never match up by the time I was done. And it's because I would end up miscounting. I would go over one thread or I'd go over three threads and I wouldn't catch it until you got halfway around. And then I was fudging because I wasn't taking out um, half a border. And now, because I start southwest of a vertical line always, I know within 5 or 6 stitches if my needle is not coming up southwest of a vertical line. And Jean taught me that, and it was one of the best tips I've ever been taught. And it helps keep your threads from burying wrong and kind of getting lost as you go. So it kind of covers a couple of um, sorry, I have a hard
Bring
time
the
talking and
bring
stitching.
bring the fabric, yeah, bring the fabric back down
There we
just a little
go.
bit. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
It's a little easier to see it that way.
There we go. Okay. Thank you for catching that because I'm watching that and not my screen. The first year that I did the stitch along, I had a friend who would do the videos with me, and she would keep me on track. And then for the last one with Eliza Martha, I was on my own, and I was always having to recorrect because I'd float out of my screen. So it's nice having a wingman today again. And I know, Kathy, you are so busy with your shop that it was really kind of you to make this offer.
No, it's fine.
And we'll
It's
do a
it's
stitch
kind of like
along every
it's kind
month.
of like how my days usually go. I kind of bounce between things.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, we will do this every month. It will not be the first day of the month every single month. I will let you know in advance when the next stitch along for Hannah will be. And the reason I can't do it the first day of every month is I babysit my grandson. And I have him, I watch him, and my daughter's schedule changes now all the time. So I never quite know from week to week what days I'm going to have him and what days I don't. So I have to kind of work around her schedule. It's one of the joys of being the caretaker grandma,
Mhm.
but it is also one of my greatest joys. That and my
So
cross.
so Patricia Lawley had a question. I'm
Oh,
going to answer, and you can give your
please
opinion too. Although
do.
since you tend to work in a hoop, you might not see it as much. She said that she does like I do and hand rolls her fabric, um, and that she's having wanted to know about needles because she was having problems with the silks getting fuzzy. So
Ah,
my suggestion for if the fabric itself is causing it to be a little fuzzy while you're rolling it, I will sometimes put a strip of fabric in the roll as I'm rolling it up, so that I'm keeping the threads from rubbing up against the fabric as much. That's
right.
not so critical with the fabrics that are dyed on the Zweigart base, but with the Witchelt fabrics, which are a lot rougher, it can
Yes,
make a
they
difference with
are.
that.
They are.
Also, sometimes too, if you find that you're getting them fuzzy from pulling the thread through the fabric, use one size larger needle than what you're used to. So needles
Yes.
serve two purposes. One is to pull the thread through the fabric, and the other is to essentially open a hole in the fabric. So if you find that the thread is getting fuzzy from going through the fabric, use a needle size larger. So if you normally use a 28, try a 26.
Right. And I have done that on several occasions because it can cause that. Now, I don't find with 103 or Swasserfine that I have as much problems ever with that kind of fuzzing, because they are such a tight twist. But I can have that problem when I'm stitching with any of the stranded silks. Um, so I run into that with the Tudor. Now I am currently using a number 12 beading needle, um, tapestry point beading needle. I go back and forth between the number 10 and the number 12. It's just what I grab, whatever I grab first when I'm pulling out my kit supplies in my sewing kit. Today, the number 12 needles were at the top, so that's what I grabbed. Um, but otherwise, if I'm stitching on a 45 or a 46 count, I will often still use a number 10, um, because I'm usually using still like 103, although I have used standard weight floss, the stranded silks on 46 count. And then I had somebody say, "Oh, you shouldn't do that." And I went, "Well, why? Mine turned out beautiful." So it all comes down to personal preference. It all comes down to personal preference and how much coverage you want. Um, I did learn that by using the regular weight on something that was heavily covered. For instance, I stitched one of the Janes, one of the Hands Across the Sea, that one of the Janes that had the cats at the bottom. Remember which one I'm talking about, Kathy?
Yeah, I can't
The little
remember which one it
girls
is.
with the cats. I can't
Yeah.
remember what the name is. Um, Lots of heavy coverage, and it did tend to pull my fabric in just a little bit in that area. So it made Sandy, my framer, have to work a little harder, but it still framed up beautifully. It still turned out just lovely.
Well, if
So
you're stitching on a denser count like what you're doing, and you find that the stitches are getting a little bit, uh, because the area is dense, they're kind of buckling a little.
right.
Um, if you tighten it in the hoop, it will open the holes of the fabric more.
Yes.
So I'm going to go grab a different hoop from what you're using because I want to show people something real quick.
Oh, wonderful. Thank
I
you.
think a lot of people don't actually know how to tighten fabric in a hoop. I learned this years ago from, I forget even, it was actually when I was doing punch needle,
Okay.
um, and which I haven't done in years, but the whole concept is the same. Um, I'm gonna switch when I get to this, I'm gonna switch the focus to me for a sec.
Oh,
Um,
not a problem.
so let me drag me over to here for a moment. The joys of technology, it will, as I drag to where the focus is, it actually shows a different person. So, hi.
Woo!
um, so when I put my fabric in a hoop, um, so this is the inner ring. This is the outer ring is always the one with the in her case, it's the part that is actually the plastic. Her
Right.
Sherry's inner ring is actually the one with the squeezy part. So
Yep.
when I put this on here, it's not the putting it on here that's the important part, it's the how you tighten it. So I'm just going to pop it on there. And a lot of people would just tighten this and use this as is, which is fine. doesn't need to be tight, super tight. So there's a little bit of a sound when I do that, but not much.
Yes.
So most people's tendency when they tighten a hoop and tighten the fabric in it is to actually just pull the fabric straight back, and that actually doesn't do much for it. It doesn't really tighten it. What you want to do is you want to lay this. It's just going to be a little more awkward. I'm going to actually use my little tray here. Is when I lay this on here, I want to pull the fabric towards the middle of the hoop. Because
Oh,
what you want to do
love
is you want to
tips.
you want to actually
Beautiful.
pull it towards the middle of the, I'm trying to get this in the right position. You want to
That's
pull it towards the
perfect.
middle of the fabric, because if you're just pulling up, if you're just pulling up from the side of the hoop, you're not really doing that much with it. You need to actually pull it this direction. So what I do is I will pull it towards the center, walk it around the hoop. So I'm doing it from the bottom side at the moment. And then once I've done one essentially pass through, I will tighten the screw. And if I want it to be tighter, I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to pull it towards the middle, pull it towards the middle. I just do that all the way around the hoop. I have to make usually 3 or 4 passes to get it reasonably tight. But if you pull it to the middle of the fabric, like you can kind of see where get my tag out of the way. So I'm pulling this way. I'm not pulling straight, I'm pulling towards the middle.
Right.
Then I actually get way more tension against the hoop. And now if I tap this, it's almost drum tight.
Awesome. And on those wonderful hardwick hoops, if you wrap the inner ring
It'll
with
hold better.
twill tape,
Twill tape.
it will hold much better. Yes.
Yeah, the twill tape actually gives you a little bit more grabbiness, because it is actually a twill weave like regular twill fabric.
Right.
So when you've got something like this where it's got an actual twill weave, I will pull it out so you can kind of see what it looks like.
Yeah.
So if you've
Not
seen
all
like
tape are
if
the
you've seen
same.
like, gabardine pants or the linen twill that we use for doing crewel work with, twill is a diagonal weave. So normal fabric weave is over, under, over, under. Twill
Right.
weave is actually woven on the diagonal. It's much more sturdy. So when you do it with this, because it's got the diagonal weave on this, it gives it more, something more to grab to. It works really well with hoops when you're doing a fabric that's super slippery. So like if you're doing embroidery as opposed to even counted cross stitch, and you're using, say, a silk or
Yeah.
a sateen or something like that, it works much better. But if when you're using a hoop, even with your little springy hoop, if you do that and pull it towards the middle
Yep. That's
rather than pulling
I
it
what I
straight,
just did
you
while
get
you were
you get
showing,
more leverage.
and
You
it
get
was
more leverage.
wonderful. Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna
love it.
I'm gonna switch back to you.
Yeah, that was, oh, thank you, Kathy. That was very helpful. It's amazing how just the littlest tip can be kind of an aha moment. I love aha moments
Well,
when
and it
stitching.
also, particularly when you're working with like what you're doing with the dents count stuff, having it be a little tighter in your hoop means that it opens the holes more in the fabric.
Exactly.
And when it does that, it means it's a little bit easier to see, and B, when you're stitching with a thread like you're using, where if you're in a dense area, it might be a little bit more uh, filled in more. It will actually open the holes enough that it makes it actually easier to stitch it. I mean,
Yes.
if you've ever watched Jean stitch, when Jean puts her stuff in a hoop, it's like you could bounce a quarter from across the room with how tight she gets
Yes.
that thing.
Yeah, she does. She absolutely does. I used to use a Q snap. I use a little 8 inch or 6 inch Q snap, because it would hold so tight. But it also made my hand more tired. And that's one of the reasons that I opt to use
Oh,
this
yeah.
little
Yeah.
hoop, is because I have bursitis in both of my shoulders. It's
And
chronic. I've had
those and
years.
the spring hoops actually come in a couple different sizes.
Yes,
That's the smallest one. There is a 5 inch.
I yes, there is a 5 inch that works
There's
very
a
well.
5 and
I
there's a 7.
don't like the 7. I don't ever find that it holds tight, ever. Not even on a good day. It's a little
Yeah, I
ornery.
just went to
But the
I'm out of 5s at the moment. I went to go grab some, but I have
oh,
the
okay. But I love. But the 5 works really well,
so
and
this is so this
that
is
I
a 7.
little.
So a
Yeah.
7 fits my face.
Yes.
I get a nice you get a nice design in my face here.
Is
I'll
that
show you
reminding you of the romper
That's a
room when you
7.
were little?
Yeah. And then this is the 3.5. So it's a nice, it gives you, even on
Yeah.
less dense fabrics, you still get a really nice working area to work with for it, which is nice.
Yes. Yes. And
Move
and
your move your stitching back down to the left again. Yep, there
there
you
we
go.
go. Thank you. Um, I have people that ask me and go, "Oh my gosh, how can you stitch on 56 count?" Um, I have a 5 diopter magnifying glass or a 3 diopter, depending on what. If I'm using my travel lamp, I have a 3 diopter lamp, but it has a little 10 diopter circle in it. And so if I'm struggling with a spot, I can use that little 10 diopter circle to see. But really good light and really good magnification are the key.
Yeah, I
And
don't I don't actually stitch with I mean, I stitch on the 56 and I don't stitch with a magnifier. Um, so I have progressive lenses.
yes,
Um, and I'm not a spring chicken. I'm 67. Occasionally someone asks me how long I've been stitching, and I said to a customer the other day, 60 years. She looked at me and goes, "How's that even possible?" I said,
because
"Because I was like 6 when I
yeah,
started." But I have a little bit more of a magnification in the very bottom part of my lenses. I had
okay,
them bump it just slightly so that
probably
I can.
quarter diopter or so.
Yeah, it
Give you
was
that
just
extra.
because I also read a lot, and so I didn't. I had a pair at one point where I had them really jump it a lot, and it turned out that was a little too much. So I take my stitching with me. So if you stitch a lot when you go to the optometrist or the optician or the ophthalmologist, take your stitching with you. Take props.
Yes.
Props are important. So I've taken my books, I've taken my laptop, I've taken my iPad. I
Yeah,
measured once to get
absolutely.
glasses to just do computer work. I actually measured the distance to my computer screen. Like the doctor, when I go to the eye doctor, they're always like, "You always come with props." Like, well, isn't that kind of the fun part of it? So,
Yes.
if you want to get glasses in particular that help with it, definitely take your stitching with you. But I stitch with the equivalent of about 200-watt light bulb. So I use
Right.
one of the newer
That's
LED
huge.
lights are much brighter, and so they give you a much better light than the old fluorescents did.
Yes. Yeah, without all the heat either of the fluorescence and incandescence, which is
Well, and also the energy usage. Yeah,
right.
that both of those. So which motif are you working on there?
I am working right here.
Oh, okay, the little wings at the
Just
top.
yeah,
Okay.
the little wing right there. Um there was just I what I'm trying to do is get over into this area where I can stitch all one color as opposed to having to switch
Okay.
back and forth constantly. So that's kind of where I'm stitching at, and we've got a few more minutes. Um I I
Let's
wish
see.
we could.
Sherry says she reads with 2.5 glasses, but she stitches on 40 with 4.0s most days. Once in a while, I
Okay,
need 4.5s. Yeah, we
right.
used to be able to get five. We used to be able to get 5 diopter lenses from little reading glasses from one of the manufacturers, and they've stopped making them, so it gets a little harder to find them sometimes. But
Right.
yeah, you can.
But yeah, go to your eye doctor. I worked for 5 years for an optometrist, and in my pre-watching my grandson life, that's what I did for 5 years before he was born. And we had people come in all the time going, this is what I do. This is the hobby that I'm involved in. Um, and so that we could make sure that we had glasses that were made really well and just right for them. Because I also wear a progressive, just like you do. I
Oh,
just,
thanks, Lila. Lila says she thinks that Lori Holt, who's one of the quilting designers, that she thinks she has 5.0s made. So I'll check into those.
oh, good,
Cool.
good, good.
Yeah, I think anything you can do to help you stitch is a good thing.
Oh, absolutely. Come on. There we go. Sorry, I was messing with my light to get my.
So did you end up doing both Swasserfine and Tudor colors to find the colors to match
No, we
for the
could
56?
all
Or are you
Swasser.
able to do them all in Swasserfine?
I was able to do them all in Swasserfine,
Oh,
um,
okay.
because the colors were so. There were some that were just really close, and so it'd be very little change. Most of the time, I've had to use both Swasserfine and Tudor, but Swasserfine has so many options now. They've expanded tremendously the number of colors that you could get in just the last year and a half. It's
Yeah, well, it's become such a much more popular thread in the States that they're able to get, um, uh, well, there are a lot of colors dyed in it, so they're able to bring more in. And in many cases, they're able to get matches to the SWA 100 dyed,
right, which
which
was so
wasn't always the case.
right. Yeah, Lenore's done a wonderful job. Lenore is Access Commodities, and that is where Swasserfine Averiswa comes from, is through Access Commodities, is the supplier here in the States. And
Oh,
we
one of the people asked if I had started Hannah yet, and it's like, no, I haven't gotten to Hannah yet. I'm still in the midst of trying to we're still trying to ship all of our Sarah Render orders, so that's a
right.
whole other. But and yeah, we got most of our Hannah orders out, and I will take my supplies with me when I go see Jean at the attic next week and meet up with Sherry, so I can actually stitch with her and Nicola on Hannah for a little bit. That'll be fun.
That will be fun. Um yeah, so I think we're about out of time. Ladies,
Yeah.
gentlemen, it's been an hour. The hour went by really fast. Um it has been so much fun. I'm so excited you're taking this journey with us. And all of the shop owners so appreciate your patronage.
Yeah, Jean
All
and
of them do.
Janine and Janice and Carrie Lynn and uh, we all really
Yeah.
appreciate you guys supporting us. Thank you so much.
And so just, if you find that there's certain supplies that you need, that we appreciate you helping out these shops, as they are the ones that are helping to promote this pattern and get it out to everybody. And so it is greatly appreciated. We really do. And we will.
Ruthie asked when
Yeah.
if you ordered from us at Needle in a Haystack, we're waiting for some more SWA 100 for Hannah. All the rest of the orders have, I think, gone out. There's still a handful of SWA 100 ones because I,
Yes.
I didn't I didn't order quite enough. So, but they're being spooled, so they will
Yes.
make their way to us.
We'll get your kits, I promise. And so, like I told a couple of people, I said, stitch on anything you want at this point while we
Yeah.
sit and visit and chat. Um, and because all of those supplies will all get out, we just didn't want to wait any longer to start this. quite frankly, I just was tired of waiting. I have been anxious for her since I saw her
And we
last
get that.
October.
We get that. You get excited to start.
Yes. So anyway, here we are.
Well,
So
and if there's any questions you guys have for, like when we get to the points where Sherry's going to talk about the different stitches, since there are a lot more stitches in this, if you want any particular little videos or anything, we can work on those, because she and I can do those when we see each other next week in Mesa.
yes, absolutely.
And if you have any questions for any of the shop owners, just post them, because
Yep.
everybody reads. Everybody, all the shop owners read the group, so we can always tag someone if they missed it.
Dumped like I have done with the other stitch alongs that I've done. Feel free to message me. Personally, it's okay. I'm okay with that. Um, if you're just stuck on a spot and you don't and you don't want to put it on Facebook, that's okay. You're welcome to message me and ask me any questions. I am completely open to that. It's Sherry Eddington. So anyway, thank you for joining us. It has been wonderful. Enjoy your stitching. Kathy, thank you so much. You're an
Oh, you're
amazing
welcome.
man.
You're welcome.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
And we will rendezvous again in about 11 days, when
yeah,
we will do it from Jean's shop with Nicola present, and Hannah's the model actually in our presence. So that'll be fun.
I can't wait. I'll get to see her. Awesome. All right. Thank you, ladies, gentlemen.
Okay. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.